If you're constantly looking for problems, the universe gives you more problems to solve.
In today's episode, Courtney and I sit down with Mitch Newman of the Inside Game, and that's exactly what we discuss. Most importantly, what can you do to achieve sustainable lifetime results? That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about habits. We're going to talk about the blueprint, the framework that you can do, that you can implement on a daily, weekly basis to always be evaluating yourself around the things that trigger you. Why are they triggering you? The behaviors that you can then implement to see consistency within your life and live a life worth of happiness and success. With that being said, let's start the show. Hey, welcome to the Insurance Buzz. We are your hosts, Courtney and Michael Weaver, and we have a special guest with us today, Mitch Newman with the Inside Game. Mitch, how are you today?
I am splendid with all the challenging technical difficulties. That's always been my the bane of my existence has been the technology side. But, you know, hey, we can hear each other and it's all good, and let's jump in.
We're rolling. Tech is now like a part of our everyday life. Before we were hopping on, Mitch is like, I can't really hear you very well. And I'm like, well, I'm definitely not whispering because I don't have that wired in my DNA. I'm excited to chat today. So let's jump right into it. What is the Inside Game?
Well, you know, I've been a coach and worked with executives and entrepreneurs and couples. It's over 2 decades now. And one of the things that I've realized over time, there's consistent through lines that happen in communication, in connection, first and foremost with self, and then out into the world. And I've noticed a pattern of people who want to create what I would call sustainable lifetime results. They want to have a level of consistency in what I would call their outside game, the action that they take in the world. But a lot of people that I've talked to, whether they've been individuals or couples, executives, entrepreneurs, they seem to have like it's either all or nothing, like everything is going really, really well, you know, or they're sucking down ramen and wondering what happened. Or they're having kind of sporadic results in the things and the different things that they're doing, or they're not able to get results at all. And so what I found is that over the years, I would always ask people the same. They would call me and they'd be running what I call some form of I'm upset because fill in the blank. I'm upset because my spouse did this. I'm upset because this happened in business. I'm upset because this happened when I was driving. So there's always some form of upset that's going on for people. And I always will ask them the same question every time, which is on a scale of 1 to 10. Like I'll let them kind of talk through, let them build their case on why things aren't going well or why this is happening or that's happening, why I can't, why I won't. And I let them kind of go through that. And then once they kind of exhaust themselves of that story, I always ask the same question. I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being non-existent, 10 being it's off the charts amazing, where are you with your personal development? Where are you with your self-care? And I've never heard anybody say more than a 4. And it's usually a 3. And sometimes the 4 is really a 3, but they're too embarrassed to say 3. So I found a consistency with everybody that I've worked with over 2 decades, which is really comes down to is that they don't have a consistent inside game. They don't have a consistent program, strategy in place to be able to have a sustainable self-care. Like they're not doing their own work along the way, and they're waiting for the outside world, the outside game to reflect back to them that they're okay. And when things are going great, I got it. I'm good. And then when things aren't, what's wrong with me? I don't understand. Why can't I put this all together? Why did this fall apart yet again? And so that goes for any kind of relationship, personal relationship, business relationship. There's always that consistent through line. So I've worked with companies and I've been involved with companies that focus so much on the outside game. Here's what you need to do. You need to talk to this many people. You need to do all. It's a list of things that you need to do. It's very logical, but then why aren't people doing it? What's the freeze point when they actually go, oh, okay, I have to talk to more people, and then they go to pick up the phone and they freeze. So what I found is that without a sustainable inside game, without tools and techniques, what I call my inner Home Depot of tools and techniques, without having something in place, the best you can hope for is either not getting results, and it's just, life just sucks, and it's just, that's the way it's always been. Some people say, you say to somebody, how's it going? They go, same shit, different day, right? Or the people are like all of a sudden on top of their game when the last time you talked to them, it couldn't have been lower. And you're wondering how long is that going to last? Or they're just kind of riding this wave, this sporadic wave, and they're just kind of going, God, I just wish I could get some consistency. I can't seem. And so what I found is without that inside game working together kind of in a marriage, in a partnership, in a co-creative relationship, that most people, the vast majority of people, and there's always exceptions to the rules, the vast majority of people aren't able to really put together that sustainable lifetime result that they're looking for. Whether it's, like I said, relationship-wise or business-wise, it doesn't matter. But they can't seem to reach that place. So that's the long answer. If we were on an elevator and it got stuck.
Yeah, no, this is so good. And you're bringing up two things here, the personal care and the personal development. So, and you keep saying a word, consistency.
Yeah.
Consistency, which I love. So what have you found maybe from a personal care? Let's dive down the personal care, or maybe what you recommend. I mean, like when you say consistency, let's dive into that a little bit. What are some consistent things that you find the individuals you've been helping and coaching throughout the last 2 decades, what have you helped them implement that they can be consistent with so they start winning personally?
Well, I call it inside game plan strategy, right? We have to strategize a little bit. And I'm the least strategic person I know. But I realize for myself, at least, if I can get this one component down, the other stuff can flow. Or it allows me to be able to weather the storms of life, the ups and downs of the economy, of business, of situations, of people having to slow down or catch up to wherever you're at to be able to get to that next level. It's all connected to it. So what I have found for myself is I work with people individually. There's things that I do that I'm consistent with. I'm consistent with my breath work. I'm consistent with my meditation. And I'm consistent with work around gratitude and appreciation. The key is, and this is where I think a lot of times where people, and this is the thing that I work with people to course correct, somehow we've got it wired, and this is unfortunately the way a lot of business has kind of adapted to the inside game. They treat the inside game as almost like an afterthought. Oh, by the way, you really also need to be doing this, with no real clear cut. They don't understand that it's an inside out approach. And so it's kind of an afterthought. So what I find is people will say to me, well, no, I meditate in the morning, or, I do my gratitude work in the morning. I remember one time somebody said to me, you'll be proud of me. I got my gratitude out of the way. And I'm like, out of the way?
It is the way.
Look, but that's what happens. So what people think is, oh, I do my inside game in the morning, and then I just go off in the day.
Yeah, like they're just checking it off on like a checklist of I got to get this done.
And that is not going to provide you with consistency. You may be consistent with the inside game, but what happens when that first phone call comes in that doesn't go the way you thought it was going to go? So what I've incorporated with people is not only are we going to find a placeholder during the day that you're going to actually know that you're going to be able to take some time to just reconnect to your breath, to reconnect and doing some gratitude, to have what I call pit stops throughout the day, because those things are going to be critical. But to also be able to say, yeah, there's certain things I do in the morning, but you know what? Some of these things that I do in the morning, they're on call, man. They're on call. I might bring them back at noon. I might bring them back at 2:00. I might bring them back at 4:00. So the idea is that I understand that there is a flow, what I call a consciousness flow between the inside game and the outside game, right? That's constantly going throughout the day. So to me, it's almost like it's like swinging a golf club. When people learn how to play golf, I use different analogies from time to time, but swinging a golf club, there's a series of things. I don't know if you guys play golf or not.
Not well.
But there's a series of things that one, and I don't, so I just use metaphors.
I like to.
But there's a series of things that you do when you're swinging a golf club that you are thinking about when you're first learning how to do it. How to keep where to have your hands, where your hips are, where your head is, where your back is, where your arms are, like where your eyes are. And the more you're thinking about it, right, the more anything can go wrong. But after you consistently, we're back to that word, after you're consistently practicing, all of a sudden what you realize is that you're doing things automatically. You're not thinking about them. And my goal, my excitement is getting people to a point where they're not even thinking about, oh, I got to go back to my inside game. Oh, this is my outside game. They're just in it. They're just going, wow, I just checked in. I'm really anxious, about to make this call. I'm just going to do some breath work, and it just happens. They don't even think about it. It just becomes automatic. And if we can get people, from my perspective, understanding that relationship that's constantly going all day long, and that they're actively participating in it, not thinking of it as one thing or another, but it's all the same and it's all connected, then we can start to really create what I would call the sustainable results. And I don't mean, this is very important because a lot of people have this whole thing wired as, well, then I'll be a success. I don't know what success means to everybody. And whenever I use the word success, I always say success is you define success. It's not just, for me, it's not just about a financial association, which is the way a lot of us were raised to think about it or socialized to think about it. But it's the success that happens because a series of things happen today that you realize a year ago, 6 months ago, 6 minutes ago, would have sent you into a tailspin for hours, possibly a day, and you were able to field them, react shortly with that, get back to neutral, get back to a place of gratitude, and keep moving forward. That's the kind of flow that I'd like to teach people and show people how to create for themselves in their lives.
I love this because you're really talking about having awareness and embodying, not just I do things or I might practice things, but I am this kind of person. And I want to go back because you said the statement of I'm upset because. I think that's a very important statement because upset really isn't a great emotion or feeling. Like there's more to that. So when you say upset, I find that fascinating because that can be frustration. That can be that you're pissed off and you're angry. You can be disappointed. You can be sad. You can feel like, oh, I'm not reaching my potential. Like, so there's a lot there. So how important is really being able to identify or say, yeah, I'm feeling insecure right now. Instead of upset, I like having the awareness around what is that emotion that's actually coming up?
Well, listen, it's going to be different for everybody. And sometimes it's really, this is just what I've learned over the years, is a lot of times people would say to me over the years, if I could just figure out why I'm angry or figure out why I'm upset, then my life would be. And I would always say, well, what if you can't? Does that mean your life is going to suck? So sometimes there's value in understanding where a story originated, where a feeling originated, and other times there's no value in it. It doesn't really matter because it's like, well, where am I now and where do I want to go? Because a lot of times people say they figure out, God, if I could just figure out. So they figure out like it's a math equation why they feel that way or why they think that way. And that becomes another story that they just keep perpetuating out in the universe Well, the reason I said that is because when I was 9, you know,
My mom said this and I reacted like this, and yeah.
yeah, well, yeah. And I found so many times, and I've had clients over the years who a series of things happened. They felt like, I had one gal that I worked with years ago, and she was always upset, like, that her father didn't come to her school performances, didn't come to her graduation. And every time, like now, is interesting enough, she's had all these challenges with different men in her lives and all this stuff throughout relationships, and her marriage didn't work, and she was involved with a married man, and, you know, like crazy stuff was going on, and she was realizing that there was some connection with her dad. And so we talked about that. I said, well, I'm really getting a hit that you need to talk to your dad. She goes, well, I can't. I don't. All right, well, I'm just getting a real clear hit that at some point it'd be good. One day she calls me hysterically crying that she had just talked to her dad. And she called, and the way this usually went was, he'd say, hi, honey, hold on, I'll get your mom. Because that's what he thought she wanted. That's why she was calling. She just said, no, I want to talk to you. And she started crying. So he goes, well, hold on a second. He closed the door. You know, what's going on? And she told all of these stories about that he wasn't at this recital and wasn't at her graduation and wasn't at this thing and all these different things, and how it's impacted her life. And he said to her, he like had no idea. He said, you don't understand. He said, I came to this country. I had nothing. And I was told that this American dream was to go out and do whatever you have to do to take care of your family. And all I was doing was going out and taking care of my family. I had no idea how this would impact you. So a lot of times we don't always have the perspective of the other person. So we're running a story about why things are the way they are, why I feel the way I feel. And we don't necessarily, and we remember it based upon our own brain size, our own capacity for logic, our own capacity for emotion from a much younger age. And we decide like those are the feelings. So that's why those types of things can be cathartic and can be, you know, really powerful for people, but they also can be a hook for people. They can also be another story for people, another excuse for people. I had a gal who felt like, you know, she was responsible for pulling the plug on her father's life support because nobody else in the family would make the decision, and how she felt the past 22 years, how it impacted every aspect of her life. And she had this really powerful experience in this program that I went through, getting my master's in spiritual psychology. And it's a 2-year program of you're doing your own work, of learning skills and tools to do your own work so that you can be better at whatever you do out in the world. And she had this amazing breakthrough around this situation. And she was so excited. She got home. She called her sister. She said, you're not going to believe it. I did this process and I was able to work through and other stuff. And I was able to forgive myself for pulling the plug, you know, on Dad's life support, and how that's impacted me over the past 22 years. Sister's dead silence on the phone. She said, well, how come you're not saying anything? How come you're not saying anything? She said, the nurses had come to us that night. The doctors had come to us that night and said, you as a family are going to need to make a decision about taking your dad off life support. And while you were deciding overnight, he died on his own. So we have to be really careful about stories and their impact and what we decide they mean and what the feelings are that we associate with them. So sometimes, like I said, there's a real great power in understanding where a certain feeling comes from, to be able to identify it as anger or excitement or not anger. And sometimes it can become a crutch. Mm-hmm. So my main focus is what can we identify? But what can we also take now? What's the wisdom we can take from the experience and move forward? Because your life is about moving forward, not about moving backward. And unfortunately, so many people keep recreating the past in the present moment, and they just exhaust themselves.
Yeah. And it becomes a mirror of, the stories that you're telling yourself. Then that's what you start to attract. That's what you start to see. That's what shows up over and over again. If you're constantly looking for problems, the universe gives you more problems to solve. So you said something in there, and I would love to hear your definition, because this is something that I hear a lot now, talking about doing the work. And we're talking about the internal work, the self-care, the personal development. What's your definition of doing the work?
Well, my definition is really a strong personal assessment of the areas in which I have grown, where I've achieved greater applications of loving and healing, and where are those other areas in my life where there is greater application of loving and healing that are necessary for me to be able to release something once and for all, to be able to move past something. And it's an ongoing assessment that I'm making, because I always say consciousness is not a destination and transformation is not a straight line. And once you choose the path, it's ongoing. It's Earth. We're in Earth school.
Yeah.
It doesn't end. Wait. Yeah, I'm still in Earth school.
Still alive. Yeah.
Right?
Still here.
We got stuff, man. Everybody's got stuff. Nobody escapes stuff. But the key is the work, or what I would actually call the joy, is being able to identify those areas where I'm stuck, I'm still in doubt or uncertainty, or I'm still entertaining thoughts that are more ego-related and more head-related than heart-related. And it doesn't stop. So to me, it's, people always just say to me, it's like, well, one time a client said to me, "You get triggered by stuff?" And I'm like, daily.
Yes.
But it's how we relate to the issue that is the issue. And if I wasn't triggered by stuff, from my perspective, if none of us are triggered by stuff, how else would we know where our work is?
Mm.
The upset is the opening.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. That triggered me. That was unsettling for me. What's that about for me? Mm-hmm. And that's what I do every single time. A lot of times people are focused on do you believe what she said to me? Do you believe what he did? And it's like, and I immediately go to, so in those situations for myself, I'm immediately going, so what's this about for me?
Yeah.
Because the expression I learned when I was in school getting my master's was, anything that upsets me is about me. And not from a place of judgment, just from a place of what you referred to earlier, awareness. Mm-hmm. So where's the opportunity for, what's up for growth and healing right now in this upset?
Yeah.
That clearly I'm ready to address. Or sometimes people go, God, I thought I was done with that. I thought I was done with that. And then they start judging the fact that they're not done with it. It's like, no. Many times there's a deeper cut. And, I call those suck so good moments. It's like, oh man, I thought I was done with this. This sucks so good. Like, okay, cool. What's up? Like, what am I ready now for?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Creating more space.
And I love what you just said, the anything that upsets me is about me, because that's so true. Because as a younger individual, I really struggled with emotions and getting angry and acting out because I felt insecure, or this guy said something,
jealous, envious, triggered,
and I wouldn't slow down to actually, hey, why am I feeling this way? Why is that triggering me? What is the actual cause of this? And so I love that you say that, anything that upsets me is about me. That's really good. And also the head versus the heart. Because personally, we've been doing a lot of, inner child work. So this is really interesting you bring this up, because so many times I want to think logically about something. I want to use the head. Why am I feeling this way, when actually a feeling only lasts for about 90 seconds if you actually just held through the feeling. So really diving into the heart of, man, why is this making me angry? Why is this making me sad? Why, versus trying to think about it for 24 hours in the headspace. What's your opinion on that?
Well, it's interesting because I'm a language freak. Like words just excite me, like,
yes.
And how people use words. So even just now, like when I'm hearing you say, well, the logic part, which is kind of a very male thing to begin with. It's not that women don't have logic; they have tremendous logic, but that's the first place a man tends to go, is that logic center.
Oh,
and
God forbid! God forbid we feel anything. God forbid we want to go to the heart.
Well, I always say, whenever I worked with couples, it was always interesting when I would ever say to the husband, I'd say, well, how do you feel? Good.
Good's not a feeling.
And I'd say, well, how do you feel? To her. And she'd say, well, I'm sad about this that's happening with our kid, but I'm feeling really joyful that this is happening over here. And she's compartmentalizing all the different places she can feel. And what a lot of times women don't understand is that guys are generally socialized to either win the football game or lose the football game. We're either elated and joyful, or we're angry and sad and depressed. Like there's not a lot of complexity to it per se. But one of the things that I've realized is how people kind of sometimes get stuck in the question is by asking the question, why? Why am I so upset? Why is this so frustrating for me? So as soon as they go why, their eyes go up. They're now in their head. And now they're looking for some math equation or something close to that will explain it. So the brain does what it does. It will, based on the way you ask the question, will then begin to search. When you go through your phone and it's like you're searching for something and it's spinning, right? And then all of a sudden something comes up and says no search results found. The brain doesn't necessarily have a frame of reference for the question you just asked. So the frustration is added to when all of a sudden you don't realize and understand why you're feeling that way or why you're angry that way. So you get even more upset. So the encouragement that I want is like, I'm looking for solutions. I want to see the story as a way to get me into solution. So I don't want to pick apart the story. I want to go, okay, so what's the thematic of the story? What's the subtext of the story? What is the story trying to tell me? So now I'm looking at it from a what question, or what's one thing I can do differently moving forward? So now there's one thing, not five things, not all the reasons, and the momentum is forward. That creates the shift that a lot of times people are looking for, so they're not stuck in, why do I always do this? Why do I always make the same mistake? God, because when what comes up with that, when the brain can't find the answer, what's wrong with me? I call it the spiral. What's wrong with me? There must be something wrong with me. Maybe I'm not smart enough. I'm definitely not smart enough. You know what? I got this far because I'm lucky, but nobody knows that because I've been able to hide that. And you just start going down this spiral, which is all it's doing is just awakening the past. I always say the past is like sitting on the sidelines of your game, waiting to be called in, waiting for a physical, mental, or emotional break to like, put me in, coach. And the past is going to come in and it's going to do what it's always done. And it's going to give you all the answers that you've always gotten. And it's going to give you the choices that you've always made in the past. And it's going to offer you nothing new moving forward. And that's a framework that a lot of people follow. And I want to support people in breaking that framework. That your future, the only thing that you can take from your past, from my perspective, is wisdom. That's the only thing you want. Everything else, you got to leave it behind. But the wisdom can't be disguised as really judgment.
Yeah.
It needs to be wisdom. And so when you shift the way we ask the question of ourselves or towards other people, if we're supporting other people that are going through some form of I'm upset because. Well, what's one thing that you could do differently over the next week that maybe you haven't considered before? And usually people go, I don't know. I go, well, if you did know, and then they know. Or if you say, well, if I asked you that question, what would you suggest to me would be a possibility? And then they know.
It's not why, it's what. I love that you were bringing this up. And you're talking about taking action, because nothing changes if there is no change in behavior. Like you will continue down the same path or go backwards. So I want to talk about the pit stops, because it sounds almost like a priming. It sounds like you're saying, okay, I'm getting myself primed throughout the day. And a lot of who we are speaking to and talking to are in a sales or a business leadership role. And there are many moments throughout the day where you feel inadequate, insecure, not confident. Like, am I making the right decision? So how often are you pit stopping throughout the day? Or is that just dependent upon person? Is there we have like body cues to where we know, like, okay, I need to come back into my body because clearly I'm spiraling in my head. I would love to hear some that you have that you recommend as well.
Sure. Well, one, I also want people to understand, because a lot of times people will talk to me and they'll say things like, I'm feeling insecure. I'm feeling like the person doesn't like me. And I go, okay, so let's take a breath, because I like to slow the conversation down, because a lot of times when we slow the conversation down, we can actually create clarity moving forward. So I'll say, well, feeling insecure is not a feeling. Insecurity is an experience that you're going through, is potentially an opinion that you have, and in a lot of cases is a judgment that you're holding. So let's separate out what is a feeling and what is an experience, observation, opinion, or judgment. So we separate those out. Well, no, I mean, yeah, I guess you're right. You know, I'm noticing that there's my insecurity comes up, and I go, great. When you notice that insecurity appears, and I don't need the story, how, I just need to know, like, what's the feeling that's present for you? And if they go like this and they look up, I go, no, look down. You're not going to find a feeling in your head. Look down, close your eyelids, check in with your heart. What's the feeling that's present? So I want people to be able to separate out, because that is such a relief for a lot of people when they start to understand that, like I'll say, are you mad, glad, sad, happy, frustrated, angry? Those would be feelings. The other stuff you're talking about are judgments that you may be holding on to yourself. Because it's not enough to just assign that as a feeling, because if we can't separate it out as a judgment and then support people in forgiving themselves for the judgment that they've been holding against themselves and others, it's always there. Mm-hmm. It's not going away. It's not gaining any relief. It's not being slowly stripped away over time. It's always there. So at that point, it's like, okay, so when I hear that, when the judgment is going, then the inside game strategy that I'm thinking about for that person or for myself is forgiveness work. Can you take 5 minutes, and I give people the language that will support them, and the way to express that language and the way to work through that, and they can do it in 5-10 minutes. Sometimes it's a little bit longer at first because it's new. And then eventually people will find themselves standing in a circle of people at a business event, and everyone's talking, and they're able to identify a judgment in their head, connect to their heart, and while everybody's talking and while they're nodding, they're forgiving themselves for judging certain people in that group, hence also judging themselves. Yep. And so that becomes one of those things that you can call upon in any given moment. So that becomes one of those things. The other moment is the fastest way that I've ever found. And I just was doing this outside. I was walking my dog, and I found my brain wandering off. And I went, oh, because I always talk about be your best observer. I was like, oh, there I am. There goes an interesting story that I'm about to run. Oh, I am running this story. Okay. And then all of a sudden I immediately go to gratitude. the simplest, fastest way to now, to this moment, is gratitude. And I suddenly looked up at the sky, and all of a sudden I could hear the birds. And all of a sudden I was paying attention to the wind. And all of a sudden I could see the green on the trees and the flowers that were coming through. And I just felt such an immense sense of gratitude, which was the ultimate state of presence that's available to myself and to anybody in any given moment. And that was because in that moment I was able to be my best observer and then get very intentional about where I was going to focus and put my energy. Was I going to invest in the story? Because, I've won many an argument alone in the shower. We all have. And I was about to win one while I was walking my dog. I'm just saying.
Yeah, keep going. I think this is incredible.
But for me in that moment, it was like, well, I'm not, no. See, here's the beauty of it. I always talk about this, and sometimes it shocks people when I say this, and it's just the truth, and it's my truth, and I just find it's the truth for a lot of other people. And sometimes when people are done like projecting onto me stuff, and then they hear me say this, and they realize I'm just like everybody else, I understand the amount of time and energy and effort and commitment that I've made, commitment and consistency to my inside game is critical. And it's daily. And it's moment to moment. It's moment to moment. And I understand that because I say to the people, listen, just as somebody who suffers from an addiction is one drink away, one drug away, one video away, whatever it is, whatever their drug of choice is, I'm one thought away from always thinking I'm the biggest piece of crap on the planet. Yep. Now, a lot of people go, God, well, that must suck. I go, no, I'm so grateful. Because now I have this inner Home Depot of tools that I built, that I utilize myself, and that I teach other people how to call upon them, so that voice 99% of the day, 80% of the day, it shifts from day to day, isn't winning. The old stories aren't winning. The old experiences that I've had that want to tell me why I can't and why I won't and why it's not for me, sitting on the bench on the sidelines. I know you're there. I know you want in the game. I got this. And sometimes they get in the game. See, that's the beauty of understanding the inside game work, is it's not that you're always winning at the inside game, that nothing bothers you. Mm-hmm. It's that, no, you accept that from time to time during the course of a day, certain things are going to happen that are going to trigger you.
Yep.
That's part of Earth School. That's part of your human experience.
Yep.
The beauty is to know that you have a library of choices. Mm-hmm. To be able to address it and to heal something, or to heal something more. So for the people who think, I thought I was done with this, well, not yet.
Not while you're still here.
Well, not yet. There's a deeper cut.
Yeah.
Well, and I love what you're bringing up, because personally, like the one thing that's coming to me right now is like your feelings versus your judgments. Okay. And like, a younger version of Michael was not so empathetic. Like, empathy was really, really hard for me to show others because I wouldn't personally show myself any empathy. I put all these, everything we've ever been told, like, oh, money grows on trees, or you got to work your ass off, or whatever it takes mentality, or grind. And so like,
push it to the side.
Yeah, it. Like, I probably wasn't the best teammate in the past when I was working with folks, because I was like, if I'm doing this shit and sacrificing, you should be too. When in all reality, when I started diving in on my own judgments against myself, why am I feeling this way? It actually allowed me, I believe, to start to show myself empathy, which in return, I was able to show others empathy. And so
compassion.
Yeah, compassion, because we don't know what is going on with others. And so that's what I'm gathering from here is the better you can be at your own inside game, the
more capacity you have to hold space for others.
That's right.
How you treat yourself
100%.
is how you treat others. Yeah.
100%. And that's why That's why every trigger for me is an opportunity for my own growth and healing. And the reason we have war is because somebody does something to somebody else, and then the person then does it back to them. Right? There's that constant back and forth. So what I like to do is, if I'm triggered by something or someone, even if I'm with my wife and I'm noticing that I'm triggered by something that she said, is I'll create the space for myself to pull back and first and foremost do my own work. Because if I can do my own work first, if we can all take that opportunity to give ourselves grace.
Yep.
Which is what I hear you talking about, Michael, is giving yourself grace to then be able to afford that, to give that to other people, is now we're just having the awareness that people are having an experience. That experience isn't necessarily about me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
If I react to it, it's now about me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I react to it and it's now about me, I want to know what is it about me so that I can address it, so that I could then go back and look at the behavior. If I react in the moment, my wife says something to me and I react in the moment, and I always say the most triggering word in the English language is you. I call it shooting U's. So whenever I'm like, if I could be on a Zoom and this happens and somebody starts to go, well, you never, well, you always, and I just start doing this little matrix thing, like arrows.
Yeah, you're
out.
like dipping back and forth.
I just move out of the way. It's like, I don't want to be hit by your U's.
Oh, shoot. That's good.
So I don't want to get into this, because if it's, so you say, well, you never do this. And then the person goes, I never do this. Well, you never do. And now you're off to the races.
Yep.
Yeah.
See, the goal is how do we get out of the story and get into solution?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And that goes for personal relationships, business relationships. People call me all the time in business. They're upset with their team's upset with them. They're case building. They're trying to convince me why they're right, why the other team is right. It's like, well, listen. You want to be right or you want to be happy? If you want to be happy, I can support you. If you want to be right, congratulations, you're right. And you're also alone. Yay, I'm alone. But I think that's it. I think it's important to be able to separate out the feeling, I'm upset because that's mine, that belongs to me. And now let me work through with that, my inside game, understanding where it originates, perhaps, I don't know, or where it's hitting me now. Do I want to move into gratitude? Do I want to move into, oh, I understand why that triggered me, because it enacted an old part of me that used to be that way. And I just got blindsided by it, and it triggered me. Do I need to forgive myself in the process for some judgment that I've been holding against myself and against my wife? Then what it does is, now that you've worked through the feeling component, now you can get back to the behavior. Sometimes there's nothing there because it was all feeling and it was all your work. Other times it's, honey, when we were talking earlier and we were sharing about XYZ and I heard the words blank that were shared, it triggered a part of me, and you're kind of explaining your process. And that's my work, and I get that. And I did some self-forgiveness around it, and I feel so much better around it. And I'm also realizing that the behavior of what took place isn't okay. And I have some suggestions around how it might be reframed, or it could be said differently, or utilizing a different word. Are you open to hearing that? Because all I want is, I don't want to be right, man. I spent so many years so afraid that I was wrong and masking it by trying to be right, that I just want to be happy. I just want to be more knowledgeable. I just want to be more wisdom-filled. I just want to be more loving. I just was talking to my daughter, who's a teenager, who's challenged sometimes in regulating her own feelings as an 18-year-old. And I told her, I said, listen, I said, it's such an important dynamic to be able to understand what it is that you're feeling. And then to be able to say, like a mentor of mine, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who put me on a trajectory that continues to this day. It's a decade later. And my coach is a certified Dr. Joe Dispenza coach. I always talk about this. When I'm reacting to something, or when I'm in something, or I'm case building, or I'm tempted to call other people and get them to, like, you want to believe what happened to me? You're not going to believe, trying to look for allies, right? Mm-hmm. Have we ever done that before? But when I go to that, I'm reminded of something that he shared, and it's pretty close to the exact words, but I'm sure there's a slight differentiate. But I ask myself, when I'm going down that path, is this behavior, is this line of thinking, is this experience that I'm entertaining loving to me and others? So she was upset about a work situation and her boss. I said, well, your boss asked you to work an extra day. You gave her a thumbs up. Do you think she's thinking about that? No. She had her needs met. You agreed to work an extra day. And now you're calling me. You're calling mommy. You're calling this person. Can't believe that she's making me work this hours. And blah, blah, blah. So you're leaking your energy out into the universe that could be utilized for something far more significant, mm-hmm. far more loving, far more self-supportive, far more engaging with other people. You're creating a distraction. And I think that's what so many people do, and they do it, and I see it, and I know you guys see it too in business all the time. They just collect stories, and they build a case, and then something triggers them or sets them over the top, and all of a sudden, like, they come before you pleading their case, mm-hmm. but they've already made a decision. They're not waiting for you. They're not coming before you like you're the judge. They're just coming before you to say, here's why I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. Here's why I'm no longer doing this. When at any point in time, and that's why the inside game to me is so important, at any point in time, when the first situation occurred, they could have addressed it right then and there. Go inside. What's this about me? What is here for me? How can I turn this into something else? How can I have a deeper level of conversation with somebody? Because in the past, I would have thought this would be a confrontation. And let me clear this up as we go. And then all of a sudden, this doesn't work. So that is, in fact, to me, is such a significant part of this, is that how we move from what could be a conversation that becomes a confrontation, that becomes drama. And then they're gone. Mm-hmm. So how do we build collectively a bigger net to catch more people who want to get caught?
Yep.
Yeah, this is incredible. Mitch, everyone listening, I know, wants to connect with you, wants to follow you, wants to dive deeper into this work. I'm so excited to learn even more about what you have going on. Share with the listeners how they can connect and follow along with you.
Well, right now in the moment, I'm having a really cool team of people building out a site for me, because what I realize right now, I have a podcast called The Inside Game with Mitch Newman. It's on every major podcast platform. And I also have a YouTube channel of the same name where people can watch if that is what they want to do. Watch and listen, or just listen is all good. But what I decided to do is I decided that I wanted to create an environment where, because I'm one person, there's X number of hours in a day. There's only so many people I can coach, and there's so many things I can do with that time period, and also, spend time with my wife and my kids and all that good stuff, and my dogs. So I'm in the process of building out a site where people will be able to go and be able to watch some videos and actually purchase their own inside game plan strategy that they can then implement. Because this to me is everything. I used to do a leadership podcast because I did a lot of leadership training within the organization that I've been affiliated with, and developing a whole leadership program. But I can't even get people to consider leadership if in their mind, their story that they're running about what a leader is oh, that's not me.
Yep.
So I realized that like all of a sudden I just like 73 episodes in, I just stopped. I said, I need to regroup here. I need to really refocus here. Like, what is that through line that I can say from day one of coaching to 22 years later? What am I noticing is that consistent through line? And it just came to me. It says it's inside game. So I want to focus on creating that. So they're going to be able to ultimately develop an inside game plan strategy that they'll be able to plug into their day and show them how to plug into their day, but it also show them how to transition that also into like the outside game. Because this isn't one or the other. This is the two together. So it's not about historically how companies have separated out. There's business Monday through Friday, and then, twice a year we do a personal development retreat. I'm not lasting in that job.
Yeah.
I'm just not. Like, it's too important. It's too interwoven, right, in the fabric of the day, both those elements. So also then be able to create for people, okay, based upon what it is that you do externally, here's the placeholders that you're going to put into game, but also the stuff that needs to be on call, because you're going to run up against yourself. You're going to come up against your resistance. We all do it all the time. So the question becomes is, what do we do when we do that? So ultimately that will be set up. It's not done yet. So I can't, I wish it was done yet. I could send people there now, but if they want to connect with me, they can do so either through the podcast or at _ Life's a Mitch _ on Instagram.
Life's a Mitch. I like that.
I do too.
No, this is what you're talking about is I love it. I feel like we could continue this conversation for probably a few hours, maybe over some drinks,
maybe
or whatever.
Days.
Maybe days, like because what you're talking about is so important, and that's because our we always say like you can't do well professionally unless you're doing well personally, and vice versa. And our motto is happy, healthy, wealthy. And that's what we view as success, both personally and professionally, is like those things. But the only way you get there, and it takes a ton of work. This is something like you said that you're working on every single day. It's not like you get it figured out and it just gets easy. Not to me anyways. Like this is a constant game that we're not playing. Like always like, why did that trigger me? What's going on? Why are the feelings doing this? Which for a male,
what's the lesson? What's the action?
Which for a male, like you said earlier, is something that basically for the first 30 years of my life, I never even who cares? Bypassing this and moving on. Let's go. Like, what's up? So I love this. I love what you're doing, Mitch. We appreciate your time today. This has been amazing.
Yeah. We love it. Thank you so much for being.
I appreciate you guys, and I think it's so important that the two of you, and I really get that sense of you as and we don't obviously know each other that well, but how you work together and how you hold yourselves individually accountable and each other accountable. It's clearly evident from the way you guys interact, and I think that's so important to be able to have that. A lot of people don't have that experience or don't know how to grasp that experience, and I think once people start to see that this isn't something that is just for some people, that it's really for everybody, and this is how you can create something bigger, something better, then the opportunity to create tools that are sticky, that last, that can create that sustainable lifetime result are available to people. And it's not just, listen, we all go through seasons in our lives, in our relationships, in our businesses. And how do we weather those seasons? The season happens. Do we fall down and start questioning ourselves and wondering and judging ourselves? Or we just go, oh, this is part of the seasons of life, and I'm going to look at this as an opportunity for growth and healing and continue my work. And it's clearly evident from the way you guys show up in the world that you're game for this. Like you're on point. So it's a pleasure to be with you guys and spend some time together.
Mitch, thank you so much. For you listening, thank you. As always, time is the most important and valuable asset that we all share, and we appreciate you spending some time with us. Go out and make it great.